Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 1075 Woodlawn Avenue here in Oregon City. We're located at the rear of the home here. We've got a 4-inch cast iron clean out, which I'd recommend getting a new cap for. It's just got a big hole in the top of it. Just lets debris get down inside. Anyway, we're going to check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. We currently have water running. We're going to zero the camera counter out right here at the base of the clean out. And I'll refer to that spot as the point of access. Alright, here we go. And I'm going to keep the camera moving fairly quickly here right off the bat, just to get it out to the street. We'll reel back a bit slower on the way out when it's all drained. It looks like we've got another tie in there at the top. I'm not sure if that's another clean out. It's possible this thing made a loop and went right back through the crawl space. We'll do some locating here in a bit and figure out where it's going. Alright, we've got a root intrusion here at 90 feet. This is also where it transitions over to 4-inch concrete pipe. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that... It almost looks blue in color there, that kind of half circle looking item there. That might be just a pipe joint, and for whatever reason looks that way. Okay, so right up ahead there is the main lateral connection wall. I'll let it drain out. We'll have a little bit clearer picture. I just went and located though, and we're literally about a foot away from the main lateral here. So we're going to let the line drain out completely. I'm going to go double check with the locators, but once this water clears out of the line, you'll be able to see the main lateral connection there just up ahead. We got lucky here. My camera stopped about 2 feet shy of the main lateral. We just about didn't have enough camera. It's about 108, 109 feet to the main. I went and located double check here, and we are exactly a foot and a half away from the main lateral here. So we'll be able to see the rest of the way down the line here when it gets all drained out in just a second. All right, we're going to go ahead and reel the camera back in here. We're going to have probably a little water trickle the whole time. I've been waiting for this to drain out completely. I think the toilet flapper has a very slow leak. You can hear it kind of hissing if you go up to it. So anyway, we're going to have a little water the whole time we reel out here. But if you look down the pipe there, that circular white wall that you see at the end, that is the main lateral connection. I know it looks like it's 20, 30 feet away. It's actually only 2 feet away from the camera head here. And I can see the rest of the way down the line there. That all looks good. There's no standing water, breaks, cracks, anything like that. We're going to go ahead and start reeling the camera back in here. Now we're starting to see some aggregate showing through in the flow line here. That's that rough stuff. You looked at the top versus the bottom of the pipe. You can see how the top is smooth. Slowly but surely, concrete pipe will always wear out. At this point here, the amount of aggregate that's showing through is not concerning. But at a certain point, if you're here long enough, you'll probably need to do an update at some point. And that entirely depends upon how much usage is down the line. So I can't really give you a figure, but you're probably anywhere from, unless you keep getting roots through the line, 10 or 15 years, something like that. Alright, here's our root intrusion, and it's a small miracle that there was this much cast iron in the line here. Generally, the cast iron stops about 5 feet out of the foundation. If that had been the case, we would probably have roots from the very start all the way to the end of the line. Now, I am going to recommend a spot repair here to correct this root intrusion. I'm going to get it marked with a white X. It's going to be up at the front of the property, out near where the property meets the street, or kind of in between the front of the front yard and the street edge. And what I would recommend looking into in a situation like this, because you've got some very large trees out front there, that unless you have plans on cutting them down and completely and totally removing the root ball, the way I like to see these get repaired, or I think that has the most success of blocking any further root intrusion, is what can happen here is if you go and replace this section right here, you meet cast iron up with maybe a new piece of plastic pipe where you have to put a rubber fernco to secure the joint. The problem is those ferncos are not all that great at resisting roots, especially large trees, which we have up there. So my suggestion here would be to look into doing a pipe liner, an epoxy liner here to line this joint. It's a much stronger joint. Unless you have a glued joint or an epoxy liner, the likelihood you're going to get a root intrusion back through that joint is pretty high. I would recommend looking into that. And the other thing I'd look into here is I would recommend looking into the cost difference between a pipe liner as far as a spot repair goes right here at this joint versus lining the rest of the concrete. The only reason I say that, I mentioned before, the concrete pipe has a lifespan. It slowly but surely wears out. If you're going to be here long enough, if the cost difference is not all that great to do a spot repair versus lining from here to the main lateral, I would consider doing it. At that point, you've fully updated the concrete, and you haven't ensured that nothing else won't happen, but you've updated the line and certainly extended its life a whole bunch. That's the only reason why I say that. Sometimes it's nice to just get all of it updated rather than a spot repair. If you're here long enough, more than likely you're going to have to update more of the pipe in the future. But don't get caught up on that. The rest of the concrete pipe here is actually in pretty darn good shape. I say that if the cost difference is maybe $500 or something like that, I would consider lining the rest of the concrete pipe. I'm going to go locate. I'll get this marked with a big white X. I'll mention the depth here in just a moment. But you do also have the option of digging it up and doing it the old-fashioned way. Alright, I'm picking up the camera heads here successfully. The hard part I'm having is it looks like there's a bush directly over the top of it, which makes it a bit difficult to get the locate wand right on top of it. But anyway, I'm going to put a second marking just before where the actual repair site is going to be. I'm going to pull it back here a few feet so I can get it out from underneath the bush. But as far as I can tell, it's more than likely the bush causing the problem, is my assumption anyway, just because of how stinking, I mean, it's right on top of the sewer pipe. It's totally possible it's some other plant or tree as well. But I'm going to reel it back here just a little bit, about 3 feet prior to it. And when you see the marking there on the ground, look for the arrow where it's pointing at, because the X marking I put down here is not the repair site. It's further into the bush, but I've spray painted the heck out of that bush, so you know right where it's at. And the depth there, I should get a more accurate depth here in just a second, but it's somewhere around 4 to 5 feet. That's the best I've been able to tell so far. I'm going to put another marking here with an arrow pointing to the direction of the repair. Alright, I've got a big giant white arrow on the ground pointing right to a bush about 4 feet away from this spot. Right at the base of the bush, you'll see where I've painted that up. And we're at 5 feet 4 inches deep here. I know that someone else recently did a sewer scope on this line. I think they only made it out about 40 or 50 feet, something like that. But mentioned, I think that they were recommending drain cleaning. But we'll keep our eye out for anything that may need to be cleared out of the line. If you just have a little bit of debris in the pipe, with old cast iron pipe like this, after 40, 50, 60, 70 years of use, it develops a scale on the inside of it. This entire pipe here essentially is coated with anywhere from about a 1/16 of an inch to up to a 1/4 inch thick of scale, which you can't really see until you start breaking it loose. Now, the concerning part about jetting a line like this is you can start knocking all that stuff loose, and it is very difficult to get cleaned out of the line once you do so, because basically the entire pipe is coated with it. So, in the effort to try and remove a little bit of debris, you can create 100 times more if you have a bunch of scale busting loose and piling up in the line. That stuff is very hard, jagged, heavy, rusty stuff that snags hold of everything that comes down the pipe. So I hesitate to recommend jetting unless it's really necessary. And it's also hard on these older lines too. You can start prematurely wearing out a line that still has plenty of life left on it. Now this might be what someone was referring to right here. And I'll do a toilet flush real quick here to see if that goes anywhere. I'm assuming that's what was referred to. I'm not seeing, and I don't know if this house has been vacant for a long time. This is the only thing I'm seeing in the pipe here. If that's all we've got, it makes me nervous to recommend a jet on this. Like I said, you could try and auger it. That might break that loose enough. That's certainly the route I would prefer anyone go with this type of line with this much age on it. See if that can break it loose. Now I'm going to do a toilet flush here, though, just to see if that thing moves at all. Alright, we should see that flush here in just a second. Let's see if we can't get this thing to break loose here. So these old cast iron lines, you really want to watch what's going down the pipe there. It's actually a pretty good pipe product. It holds up a long time. You can see how well it's held up for this many years. But it's rough on the inside. It tends to snag things. Toilet paper is not a problem because it breaks down, but if you put wipes or paper towels down the pipe, they really snag easily inside this type of sewer line. You just want to be careful you're not doing that. And it looks like it's pretty much staying put there. Anyway, I would recommend an auger go down the line, but not a hydrojet. Again, I've already explained why that can be a problem. But you can see that this is the only thing caught up here. There's no other debris evidence built up in or around this spot. So it looks like for the most part things are moving past this point pretty easily. I would go that route and see if you can't get it to bust loose there. If it requires jetting, it's not something with a line like this that's got as little debris in it as it does. It just concerns me you're going to create a bigger mess than is already here. It looks like we got a wad of couple cleaning wipes or baby wipes or paper towels. And generally, if you've got something that's causing a whole bunch of stuff to build up, usually if it's doing it consistently, you're going to have a lot more than this built up in the line. That's not to say it couldn't cause a problem. It just seems unlikely. We'll let the water continue to drain out here for a moment before reeling back. Alright, we're going to keep reeling back in here. We got another one right here as well. There's 2 or 3 of those there in the pipe. Now you can see right here as an example, I know it's hard to see because the camera lens is kind of gunked up, but off to the left there you can see how the pipe wall is not a smooth circular shape there. That's some rust scale that's collected on the pipe. Now, if the drain clean guys can guarantee you they're going to get every bit of scale out of there, then you're probably good to go to do the hydrojet. There's a little bit more stuff here than I originally thought. We have a little stringy, strandy item. And the hard part now is keeping the camera lens clean. If you look off the left side of the screen, you'll see kind of a white line there, stringy looking item, going from the sidewall kind of towards the flow line. At this point, there's enough junk built up and around this spot here that is looking more like string, especially tampon strings. Very, very common thing to get caught up in the pipe. At this point, it does not appear to be a root intrusion. Generally, they present themselves a little bit different. You're not usually just going to get one little tiny strand like that in the pipe. As far as I can tell here, it looks like it's either string, dental floss, or a tampon string, which are the most common items to hang up. It's very common for tampons to get stuck, especially in cast iron lines. As long as the drain clean guys can get an auger down the pipe there, and there's no issues with the amount of turns in the line, I think it's worth going that route there. If you have anyone in the household who wads up their toilet paper, puts anything else down the line that shouldn't be going down there, the amount of stuff that's there could potentially cause other things to build up and clog up. you can see how we're kind of getting some chunky little bits here on the side of the flow line, on either side of the camera. That right there is an example of some rust scale, it looks like. And I would imagine after 2 sewer cameras have been down here, you'll get a little bit of that breaking loose. But even at that point there, it worries me to jet the line, because you can end up, like I said before, with so much more. But if the drain clean guys know what they're doing, and they'll get every little bit of rust scale out of the line, I would say go for it. You just don't want someone to come out and jet this thing and turn it into just a big pile of rust buildup. But we are seeing some bit chunkier spots like right here. And that stuff, although it may look minimal, can snag toilet paper like crazy. Alright, we were just about to reel the camera out of the line. Again, we've got the root intrusion at 88 feet. It's at 5 feet 4 inches deep up at the front of the property. It's right in the kind of the tree and bush line there, kind of between the front yard and the street. That's marked with there's a big white arrow pointing to where the repair is at. I recommend a spot repair there. And then as far as the cast iron pipe here goes, we do have it's not a hugely significant amount of debris, but we do have about 3 or 4 wipes in the line, as well as some scale that's in the flow line. So I do recommend, I would first consult the drain cleaning guys, have them watch the video, and then I would go from there as to what the best method is going to be to clean that out. If you can do the hydrojet and ensure that it's going to be nice and clean when you're all said and done, I think that would be the best route to go. It's going to get the most debris out of the line. If they don't think they're going to be able to do that, I would run the auger down there and try and break that stuff up so that a few toilet flushes or running the garden hose is going to float that rest of that stuff on out to the main. But I would make sure the drain clean guys watch the video first so they kind of know what they're getting into here. Aside from that, though, the cast iron pipe, as far as I can tell, and there's a couple spots with some debris. Sometimes that can conceal issues. As far as I can tell, it's just some debris buildup, and the cast iron pipe is all in good condition. And then beyond the root intrusion, the concrete, aside from that one joint, is also in pretty darn good shape at this point. And it looks like it still has plenty of life left on it. So hopefully you can get the thing all cleaned out, do the spot repair on that root intrusion at the very least, and get that dealt with, and you'll have a nicely functioning sewer line. Again, I've mentioned before that, you know, if the cost is not a whole lot more to line that whole concrete section, I think it's worth doing. It protects it much better against root intrusions or further root intrusions in the future. And you've got an updated line at that point. And the concrete of the 2 types of pipe there will wear out usually much faster than cast iron will. So anyway, I get a rescope done after any repair work as well as drain cleaning work is done. If you have a jet go down this line, you better make sure you get a scope done to make sure that it's all been cleaned out and you don't have a bunch of rust scale left over. But minus the root intrusion and some debris in there, we've got a good line here that is functioning properly, or at least will function properly once you've got some cleaning and spot repair done.